American Maha. This is a chapter from my upcoming memoir, Maha Unshackled. If you just joined, welcome, and I recommend that you start from the beginning, introduction, all the way to chapter 15. I found the perfect apartment in Santa Monica, the Arkstone. I had saved up as much as I could in Fresno, but I knew it wouldn't last me long in LA. This apartment was way beyond my budget, and I needed to find a job as fast as I could. It was 5 blocks from the beach. It had a gorgeous rooftop with a swimming pool and surrounding cabanas, a jacuzzi, and a state-of-the-art barbecue setup. Since the building only offered studios or one-bedroom apartments, most of the tenants were young and single. It was our very own version of Melrose Place, and everything I had imagined LA life would be like, and even more. We had barbecue Sundays, margarita Thursdays, happy hour Fridays, and party night Saturdays. I made incredible friends and had the time of my life. My apartment door was rarely locked, people coming in and out all day. I got especially close to one of my neighbors, Larissa, a tall, tan girl with long, dark, curly hair from the Amazonian jungles in Brazil. She told me that she grew up in a tribal village where she had to take a canoe to go to school, and her grandfather, like most of the elders in the tribe, rarely wore clothes at all. At most, just a simple thong made from tree bark, fiber, or cloth. More symbolic than practical. Her father had passed away when she was young, and her mother remarried several times. One of her mother's marriages was to an American CIA agent that lived in Washington, D.C. He adopted Larissa, and both her and her mother became American citizens and moved to live with him there. It was an instant kingship. She had come from an indigenous culture and was now living the American lifestyle just like I did. Now, whether those stories are true or not, I will never know. The kindest way to describe Larissa is highly imaginative. But nevertheless, it was indeed an interesting background. At 20 years old, Larissa had just become a vegan chef. Over 2 months, she literally lost at least 20 pounds. I watched her shrink right before my eyes and finally asked how she did it. She handed me a book titled Skinny Bitch, a no-nonsense, tough love guide for savvy girls who want to stop eating crap and start looking fabulous, by Rory Friedman and Kim Bernoon. I had written out a list of goals on a piece of paper because, of course, I heard Oprah say that. When you write your goals down, they become true. At the very top of this list was to wear a bikini and go to the beach. That was the dream. That was my Mount Kilimanjaro. So I walked down 3rd Street Promenade in downtown Santa Monica and went into a swimsuit store. I gotta tell you, bottoms were easy, no problem, but tops, a nightmare. Bras were always difficult for me to find. I had a slim body with gigantic boobs. I needed a huge cup with the tiniest band. And let me tell you, they didn't make that size, at least not back then. I tried one after another. I felt bad for the sales associate that kept sticking her hand behind the curtains of the dressing room and handing me more options. Nope, no good. Didn't fit. The cup is too small. The band is too loose. And finally, I found this bright orange bikini that not only fit me, but made me feel good and look hot. I never saw myself or my body in that way before. I felt like a woman. I walked back to my apartment, packed up my beach blanket in my tote bag, threw the sunscreen, water, and the Skinny Bitch book in there too, tossed the tote bag in my beach cruiser basket, and biked down the path to the Santa Monica Pier. I kept biking further up north to find a quiet, clean spot away from the crowd. laid out my blanket, and stretched out in the sun. The wind in my hair, the sound of the waves, the sun kissing my skin. It was heavenly. Everything I imagined it to be, and even more. That moment changed my relationship with my body forever. After years of being told to cover up, to hide in black from head to toe, to believe that my body was sinful, it was always on me, on us, on women everywhere, not just in Yemen, but across the world and throughout all time. It was on us to control men's temptation, never on men to control themselves. There I was, in an orange bikini, finally free. I read the Skinny Bitch book from cover to cover that afternoon at the beach. The way the book described how animals were treated and slaughtered was so vivid and intense that I felt sick. Chapter after chapter, I wanted to scream, "Okay, I get it, I promise I'll never eat meat again." Right then and there, I decided I would eat only vegan food. I was nervous coming from a Middle Eastern background. We are definitely meat lovers. I wasn't sure what else I would be able to eat, and I did not want to restrict myself if I craved something not vegan. I also never had any interest in being a food preacher. I felt like it was never my responsibility to tell people what they can or cannot eat. So I made a promise to myself that I will give veganism a try, and if I changed my mind, I will give myself permission to do so with no feelings of guilt or shame whatsoever. I asked Larissa, "So what would I even be able to eat? Just salads all day?" Her eyes lit up. "Are you kidding? I'm so thrilled you're going vegan. Don't worry at all. I'll take you to the Co-Opportunity Market. They've got fresh organic food, and I'll show you how to shop and eat healthy." I laughed. "So we'll be eating clean and mindful?" She smiled. "Exactly, and we'll both be skinny bitches." And that's exactly what we did. Larissa and I would hang out almost every day. She would come over and cook dinner, and we would laugh ourselves to tears watching old SNL sketches. Our favorite sketch was Justin Timberlake doing the "Bring It On Down to Veganville," dressed in a giant block of tofu costume, dancing through the streets and singing, rapping about veggie burgers and kale. It was right up our alley. One day, Larissa knocked on my door and sat down on my couch. She sighed. "I'm in a dilemma." "What's going on?" I asked. "You know, I moved here from DC with my high school boyfriend," she said. "We're living together at the Arkstone, and I've been working part-time at Ted Baker in the new Santa Monica place across the street." I nodded. "Yeah?" "There's this client who comes to the store a lot," she continued. "I think I'm starting to fall for him. He's older, glamorous, a musician, very Hollywood. He actually gave me his number and asked me out." I looked at her carefully. "And what about your boyfriend?" She shrugged. "I feel like I've outgrown that relationship. This new guy makes me feel alive." I leaned forward. "Larissa, I get it. Relationships are complicated and you're young. But if you're thinking about cheating, then instead, the right thing to do is to break up with your boyfriend first." Mackay was a local beach lounge where the Arkstone crowd always ended up. We drank and danced until closing time and then stumbled next door to Joe's Pizza, grabbed a slice, and carried the party up to the rooftop. One night at Mackay, this guy slid into our lounge chair just like he belonged there. "Mind if I sit?" he asked, already making himself comfortable. I laughed. "Guess you already did." That was Dan, smooth like that. He pulled out his iPhone. "Have you heard of this app? It's called Bump. Watch this." I held out my phone, curious. Cheers, he smiles. We knocked our iPhones together the way you'd clink glasses in a toast. And in seconds, our numbers were automatically exchanged and stored in our contacts. See, he said, now you're stuck with me. He was right. From that night on, we were friends. Even though he didn't live at the Arkstone, everyone thought he did. He was always there, drinking with us, laughing, making himself part of the crew. We called him Tequila Dan. Why Tequila Dan, someone asked. Because I drink it straight, he said proudly, tossing one back. Dan was unapologetically himself. He did whatever Dan wanted, whenever Dan wanted to do it. On a road trip to San Diego, every story began with Dan did this and Dan did that. Finally, my friend Shiva threw her hands up in the air and she said, "Who is this guy Dan? I want to meet Dan." Dan lived a few blocks from me in Santa Monica, close enough to wander over barefoot. He was a surfer dude, always in his board shorts, flip-flops, if he felt fancy. Why bother with shoes, he shrugged once. He didn't own a car, just a bike and a skateboard. Sometimes he'd roll up to my place on his board, hair wild from the ocean breeze. "Grab your suit," he'd say. "We're going body surfing." Or, "Come on, we're hiking tonight. Trust me, it's better under the stars." He was the one who taught me how to smoke weed for the first time. "Don't hold it like a cigarette," he instructed. "Just breathe it in. Easy." We spent nearly every weekend together for the next 7 years. People would nudge us all the time. "You two should date," they'd say. I would laugh. "No way. It's too late. I know too much about him." Although Dan came across like a barefoot surfer drifter, the truth was he worked in finance. Not just anywhere. He was with one of the top hedge fund firms in the world. It was almost like Dan lived a double life. He worked East Coast hours, starting at 4 a.m. when Wall Street opened. "How do you go from finance to this surfer dude?" I asked Dan. He laughed. "The more serious my work is, the more fun I want to have after. As soon as I get home," he laughs, "I rip off my suit and tie like Superman, take a puff, and run shirtless to the beach." My circle of friends kept growing, and life finally started to smile at me. I wanted to live the college life I had missed out on in Romania. I wanted to go dancing, to have friends like friends. I didn't want to belong to anyone. I didn't want to be someone's girlfriend. I didn't want to be someone's wife or someone's daughter. I wanted to be completely free, and that's what I manifested. I got to know all the promoters in the Hollywood scene and was always invited to the hottest parties in town. We rode in stretch limos to the clubs, slipped into the VIP lounge, and danced on top of the tables with the likes of will.i.am from the Black Eyed Peas, as if the night would never end. And sometimes in the middle of it all, I couldn't help but think how far I had come from that girl once locked in her bedroom in Yemen. Larissa eventually broke up with her high school boyfriend and started modeling. One day, she was invited to a mansion in a gated community in Bel Air for a photo shoot. She begged me to come with her because she was nervous about going alone. Being the good friend that I was, I agreed. As soon as we passed through the towering private gates, a valet greeted us and took our car. Inside, the house was enormous that we had to follow signs just to find our way around. It felt like a Vegas hotel, arrows pointing us towards the swimming pool, the tennis court, the garden. We followed the signs to the pool area, a massive backyard that opened up to a panoramic view of Los Angeles stretching all the way to the beach. There, the glam team was waiting. Models in swimwear lounged around while getting their hair styled, their makeup perfected, their nails painted. Someone asked me if I wanted to get glammed up too, and I declined with a polite smile. I went to sit by on the deck. While Larissa was getting glammed up, a butler appeared behind me, balancing a golden platter topped with one of those classic red and white striped popcorn tubs, the kind square at the bottom and round at the top. "Popcorn, madame?" he asked. "Sure," I said, and picked up one from the platter. The whole scene felt unsettling. I was too familiar with men using power to their advantage. The crowd was mostly older, rich men and very young women. At 27, I was the oldest female there. Across from the swimming pool, a group of athletic young men played sand volleyball. One of the older men walked over and introduced himself as Ray. He caught me watching the game and said, "Oh yeah, those are Olympic athletes." "Are you a model?" "Nope," I replied. "I'm a civilian." He laughed hysterically. "I like your attitude. You're different." "I'm just here to support my friend Larissa," I said. "Ah, Larissa," he smiled. "Your friend is very beautiful." After the hot, young, and ripped Olympic athletes finished their game, we all gathered around the buffet. I noticed the young athletes kept to themselves, quiet and distant, never mixing with the rest of the crowd. There was this unspoken understanding that they were there only for display, not to mingle with the young female models. The only ones who creeped on the young models were the older men. Ray came back and picked up the small talk. "I live in the mansion next door with my nephew, Eddie. You know, Eddie Murphy, the movie star." "This is a very small circle, but I'd like to invite you to dinner at the mansion. You can bring your friends too." "I'm vegan," I told him. He smiled. "So am I. Our private chef can make a full vegan dinner for us. Afterwards, we can go bowling at Eddie's in-home bowling alley." As tempted as I was to go bowling at Eddie Murphy's mansion, I had a gut feeling it wasn't the greatest or safest idea. Ray kept texting me, asking what dishes he should have the chef prepare. I kept telling him I didn't feel comfortable coming over. He assured me he completely understood, that we were just friends and that he wanted nothing more from me. Still, I asked myself, if this weren't Eddie Murphy's mansion, if it were just some regular old man inviting me to his private house, would I say yes? The answer was clearly no. So I politely declined the invitation. Fast forward 10 years later, I was watching Tiffany Haddish give her speech during Dave Chappelle's Mark Twain Award. She said the best day of her life was when Dave took her bowling on Thanksgiving Day at Eddie Murphy's mansion. I bit my tongue and thought, oh man, that could have been me. This was an excerpt from my memoir, Maha Unshackled. My memoir has been complete and sitting on my laptop for months now. So if you know a publisher or you can slip it into Oprah or Reese Witherspoon's book club, I'll owe you free yoga classes for life. Please subscribe to get the next chapter for free.